Hi guys, it's Steve at Tableting, and today I'm going to be running you through a single point perspective drawings inside of Toon Boom. So I'll show you where I've gotten to recently. I've not done any content for about a month, maybe even longer, maybe about 6 weeks, because I've been very busy every night doing more of the same of what I'm about to show you. So let me quickly run you through what we did last time, which was this. And this is the bit that I really like. So although I have rigged a character and I'll do a tutorial on that separately, and a walkthrough rather than a tutorial, I prefer doing the scenes. I find them more therapeutic. I like creating them. I get a lot out of doing it, and it's a lot less effort as well. It's something just to unwind, whereas I found animation, like the rigging is intense brain power as well as the drawing element, which is fine. When I'm focused and I take a day off work, I can sort of put the time in to do that, but it's not something that I find particularly enjoyable compared to painting scenes. So my idea at the moment is just to keep painting as many scenes and go with the flow, and the more and more scenes I get, I can put my 2 rigged characters that I've done already into lots of different situations, and yeah, it'll just kind of build over time. So if we go to, this was next up, you can see I've started to use a lot more of the brushes, so we've got a lot more textures going on, and it looks a bit more 3D, and it just looks like it's a little bit more thought out, in my opinion. This was the second, that was the third iteration of a different, if I'm talking about them in chronological order of how I accomplished them. So this was the second one up, so you can see it's very similar to this, quite, it's okay. Like, I was happy with them at the time, definitely happy with that at the time. And the more I started to use the pencil instead of the brush and went thinner with the actual tip, I'm preferring this style. So that led on to this, which was my first exterior piece, which uses 2-point perspective, which I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. And then finally, this is the one I'm working on at the moment. So this is the only thing I'd change about this is the vanishing point is very low. So the vanishing point sits around here, and it just makes it very difficult. I've started to put people into this scene, and because it's so low down, it'll be good for like a toddler or something like that's point of view of the room, but I can't really see any real use cases other than maybe somebody walking into the door and then it change into another view of this room. So my idea was, rather than throw this away and start again because the vanishing line was wrong, keep it and just move on to another view of this room, but with that horizon point in mind. So that is today's sort of walkthrough, and I might fast forward things as we go because it is quite a long process. So there'll be times when I'm just sort of making lines and not really talking, and at those points I'll just fast forward it, but I'll try and talk through all the bits as they come up. So yeah, let's get started. I'm using the pencil tool, and I'm using a 5 pixel brush. And I'm also setting this minimum size to 100. Now, if I don't do that, let me show you the difference. So you can see I can sort of do small and thicker lines, and I don't want that, especially with scenes. So I just keep that at 100 so that no matter how hard I push on the brush, it is always the same thickness. The next thing I have open is my guides, so window guides, and then you just hit new, single point perspective, that will come up, and what you want all these ticked basically. That brings up this diagram. You want to set your horizon point wherever you think the horizon is. I'm trying to keep it at eye level at this point, and you can see everything sort of draws to that point without any effort. That's just me aimlessly scribbling on the page, and it sticks to those lines. If you want to switch that off and draw something freely, you just turn that button off there. So going into here, let's turn the grid on so we can make sure that our horizon point is perfect, and then we will do some line work. So I'm going to go straight through that 12 on the corner there, just so that my line is perfect. Is it there? It's about there, isn't it? Yeah. I'm going to go out the other side. And the same again up here. So we're just going to go to about here. I'm going to come all the way through and out the other side. And then we're going to do now we're going to draw a square, a rectangle rather, a rectangle that will encompass our background. So so that is our back wall. Yep, that'll do for the back wall. And then we can probably turn this off now. We don't really need that. And then we can also cut away some of this excess. We don't need these in the middle anymore. This is the cutter tool. So you hold, it's usually this by default, just hold that down and go to the cutter. And you just slice through the lines you no longer need. Again, really useful and pretty intuitive. It doesn't really cut the lines that you don't want that often. So now we've got that. I can see that there's a little bit of an error here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that excess off, and I'm going to budge this all up a touch just so that it's a little bit neater, and then cut that excess. You can see there's a little bit there. That's fine. And yeah, just go around and tidy up your lines this just before you move on, because if you don't, it's going to be very difficult to kind of do it later as you start putting more lines intersecting one another. So what I'll do here is I'll use the select tool because there's two pieces here, and I will just move that across so that we're in line there. There we go. Now the problem with doing this is sometimes you'll go to make a new line and you'll never be able to get it perfect, but yeah, just always check that the work you're doing isn't damaging what you've done. If you move stuff too much, it won't actually work anymore. Okay, so now let's just plonk that in there so that it's cleaner. And there we go. We've got a little basic box room. That one up there, this could still do with moving a touch down and to the side a little bit. And then we can go in with the cutter and just cut that extra little bit off. Okay, so there we go. We've got a bit of a basic room. We're going to extend on this a little bit because I don't feel like we've got enough wall up here, or here for that matter. And then we're going to cut it off about there. Yeah, that's probably plenty for the room. And then this may not line up, which it doesn't, as you can see, which is absolutely fine because the chances of us sort of coming down here are very rare. But like coming this far, panning this far out of the scene is going to be very rare. So let's cut away all this excess. Cut all the extra away, and you can quickly see it's starting to look nice and tidy. And then we'll also just round it off with one at the top as well, so that looks a little bit better. So come on, always the last line I struggle with, and even that I'm not happy with. It's still intersecting a little bit too early. Okay, that'll have to do. That will have to do. Again, we're probably never going to look at that. So let's go to the drawing because it's much easier to see on the drawing. You don't have this huge camera box here, which is quite off-putting. So this is our scene so far. And let's make sure we're using the other one for reference as well. I did want to make sure we were constantly checking this one. So it's about the same size. Obviously we're at a different angle now, so we've got a little bit, it's less zoomed in and low down. So the first thing we're going to do, if we're looking the other way, we're going to have the door on the, let me get this right. So we're going to have to switch the door onto the other side to indicate, and it'll have to be exactly the same door. Likewise, the window's going to switch onto the other side as well, so that'll have to be the same door, the same window, sorry. Now, if I'd have been smart about this in the first place, I could have just reversed the, used the exact same room and the exact same props and everything and just flipped it and then took out the kitchenette, took out the sofa and put whatever was going to be on that back wall. But because I'm not happy with that horizon line, that is why we're going back in. And I thought, what better way to show you guys how to kind of create one of these from scratch. So the first thing I tend to do after doing that, I say the first thing, there's, we're quite a few steps in now, is define the flooring. So let's just get that flooring done. So I did it every one of these marks. I kind of just did a new one. So let's turn that grid back on. Yeah, there we go. This is what I used. So let's go back. I did actually use this last time. So these should be consistent. 1, 2, I'll probably speed it up here. So now that's done, we're gonna go in and just cut away the excess. Yeah, our door's gonna be on this side now. So what I'll do is I'll, let me have a quick look, because we've got a door and then there's actually a coat hanger on this side. I've not really shown it very well in this. So there's a coat hanger and a door, which means if you flip it, there's going to be a door, and then the coat hanger is going to be, so the door's going to be here, the coat hanger is going to be there, and the door comes quite close to the roof. So let's just start drawing that door in. So the same again, kind of like keep that in. Yeah, that's probably fine. Probably. Like, I mean, I'm not working for a production company, am I? Like, I kind of see what I'm doing as perfectly fine. Like, however I do stuff is perfectly fine. It's not like it's going, you know, anywhere. It's just whatever's easier for me, I guess. So, well, another thing to note is just go a little bit thinner on, not loads, but a little bit thinner on that second line. I've noticed that that's probably a bit too far away. So let's just bring that in a bit. And then keep that line fairly thick, but not, you know, a little bit thicker on this one because we're coming out. And then let's just make this frame a little bit better. I might have to zoom in and just tweak that. Come on. Sometimes it just does that. You can never get that pixel. Okay, so how thick are we there? Probably about right. Okay, so now this time, now the door swings on this hinge here, which is going to be the one furthest or closest. No, it's closest here, so it's going to be the furthest away. So it's going to swing on this hinge here, which means it's going to come out like this. So yes, it is still worth doing this bit, which I was going to be lazy and leave out, but we better add to it. And then underneath. So there we go. And then let's just put a straight across. And now we're going to just go in and tidy this up and get rid of all these lines that are hindering our view. So you can see sometimes you delete the wrong lines. That's quite common. And it can look really weird and you're like, why does it look so weird? But it's just because you've deleted the wrong lines like an idiot. So just try and keep those lines consistent. Oh, delete the right ones. Why are you doing that? I want that little piece. There we go, and the little piece there. Sometimes you get these little knobs. Right. Okay, so we just go straight across like that. And it looks a bit weird, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure why. Usually, I know why. That needs to go like that. That needs to go up like that. I've done it wrong. Just talking about cutting the wrong lines off. And I've cut the wrong lines off. Or it didn't do the right lines to begin with, rather. So here we go. That will look better. Slightly. Still looks a bit gash. There we go. That's a bit better. There we go. So we got a door frame. Let's just cut off some of those bottom bits. Doom. Doom. Oh dear. Okay, there's our door frame. Brilliant. So on this side, we're going to need our window. So our window needs to, oh no, we need our coat hanger. So let's do our coat hanger. Like that. We also have a strange room. Like that. Just putting the rail on, and then how high is that? So we're going about halfway up the door. It's probably about there. Oh. So yeah, let's put in our dado rail. Good old 90s rail. Okay, so we'll just cut the excess off again. Looks okay. And then we just need to do some lines down. Okay, there we go. Let's get rid of some of the lines in between. There we go. Okay, oh, we've forgotten to do forgotten to do this here. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, it's starting to take some decent shape. We are just going to do a few more of these beams. And also, there's a light switch just over here. So let's make sure we get that light switch in. Anyway, it's a bit shit, but we'll be fine. Okay, so moving on, let's just flesh out this a little bit. I'm gonna have to go back in and clean this up. That will do. In fact, I just realised that my hair is sticking up, but I also realised, let's start colouring this in. So you just, yeah, again, don't overthink it, just go for it. That is the key to not wasting time. Just go for it. If it doesn't look right, change something rather than, you know, the alternative. So, you know, there might be some that I change here. Once I've done these, I might go for a few that are darker or a few that are lighter. Oh, when did I colour that line in? No. Okay. Keep going out of screen. Apologies. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I know, like, some people might not be. Some people might think it's gash, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's worked out. If we're talking 20 minutes, just on the fly. So the next thing to do would be to kind of two different colours. Go for a lighter one on the back wall and darker on the outside on these walls, or the other way around, go for a darker one on that back wall and lighter ones on coming out. It's entirely up to you. Just make sure that that is a thing. So make sure you're always thinking about it three-dimensionally. If you look at two walls, they're not the same colour when you look at them, you know, in the wild, so to speak. Right, so next up is, what colour have we got up next? That khaki, like, weird colour. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure that that's right. I think that they might be a darker version of the brown. Maybe. I don't think they're that brown, are they? Maybe they are. Nah, definitely not. It looks like the bottom's that brown. I don't even know. Surely not. No, it's not. But then that looks too light. It definitely is too light. So there must be another brown in here that I've used. Maybe it's that one. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so let's get that on there, that on there. And then that'll be the lighter one, I would imagine. Let me just make it a tad lighter. Okay, that'll work for now. And then let's get these this khaki colour. Where did I find that? It looks like it might be that. So yeah, we'll do the khaki on the walls. You can see it's quickly coming, turning into something. And then we'll do a lighter version. maybe just, yeah, that'll do. Just has to be different enough. I still think that might be, still might be lacking a little bit of colour. Almost looks like the saturation's removed out of it. Let me just put it back and then we'll go for a while. Yeah, that's better. It just looks a little bit lighter. We don't want it to change too much. Yeah, even that's a little bit much. See, a lot of my time just gets spent tweaking things ever so slightly. Right, that'll do. Yeah. So it's only subtle, you know, it's nothing major. Okay, so now we just want, which one are you? That one. Okay, so now we want that green for the walls. Okay, so it's got to be one of these, hasn't it? Ah, it's fine. Yeah, don't worry. I'm overthinking it. Doing that thing, overthinking it. Let's just make this a tad darker then. Right, okay, let me try something. I think it's the green that's off, to be honest. Perfect. Okay, there we go. So we're getting there. You can see it's looking like the same room for the most part. Let's do, perfect. And then let's do that. And that's perfect. And then for the light switch, let's go with like a grey. Okay, and go for a darker grey on one of the buttons and the side. Why is it doing that? There we go. So here I have a black and a white on a low opacity, and I find these great for just doing highlights and adding the dark and the light bits to a scene. So if I go for my tool properties, this is when I actually do enjoy using a pencil that is a little bit more variable. So if I turn this off because it's trying to keep me in the lines, but you can see I've got much more control over how thick that appears, and I might even go to a 20 where I've got nothing to quite a lot. So yeah, it is just trial and error. What actually looks right and what doesn't. That's kind of what you want to be doing. Sometimes I do stuff and I'm like, oh, that looks so weird. And then other times I'm like, oh yeah, that looks all right. And it literally is just trial and error. Once you've done that and you go in with your lighter ones, you can see it starts to really like bring out three-dimensional shapes. Okay, so yeah, you can quickly see how this is starting to look like we know what we're doing a little bit. Now, the floor is a similar sort of situation. So what you want to do is you kind of want to go through, you can turn off the grid and kind of, you know, just try and make wood patterns. And again, do not overthink this because you could be here all day. Oh, it should just a little bit to the left, just a little bit to the right. Like, you will be here forever. Just do a few, you know, don't go overboard is the main thing. Like, you can quickly do too much. Yeah, see what I mean? You just gotta go with it. Sort of follow, try and make it look as though there's a little bit more going on. So there we go. We've got like a bit of a floor, a bit of a sides, and then I'll do the same with the door frame. The door frame will have sort of okay, so now we've got a proper view of our room and it does look okay. So the next thing that we need to do, or that I would do in this situation, is just finish off the roof, which if we look here, it's like a yellow and there's also a bit of a border going around. So let's get those two things done. little shade darker. That will do. Okay. All right. So let's go into the drawing layer so we can see the drawing. As you can see, we've made pretty good progress in a short amount of time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the brushes, which are really handy. So I only really use the brushes in black. So I use pointillism, I think it's called. Is it pointillism? Yeah, there we go. And a lot of cartoons use this. So we want to make it a little bit chunkier and kind of just put it in the places where things meet. And it gives it that, like, I don't know, kind of worn, you know, it just looks a bit more realistic. The room is not so sparkly and clean. It's worn, you know. You see what I mean, hopefully. But when you're just adding it as a subtlety and a very low opacity, when you sort of zoom out, you can see the room looks a little bit more lived in, as opposed to this like really clean and, you know, do a little bit underneath things and kind of where hands would be a lot. And you can quickly do some really, you know, pretty cool. I love it anyway. Maybe I'm overdoing it, who knows? But I quite like it. It feels like it's coming to life a little bit more when I use it. And then once you've done that, you want to go to some wet splotches, and this is where you can kind of add a little bit of more custom sort of, turn that off, make it a bit bigger, you know, just custom stains and things. Just I try and do them in a way where, you know, it would be realistically a bit minging in those areas, you know. Just, again, subtle. It's not about like absolutely plastering your scene with loads of crazy shit, but just enough to make it look like it's lived in. I tend to do corners a lot, you know. Again, it just adds that that look and feel that I guess I go for a lot, which is decrepit. Needed some TLC. So yeah, you can see it's subtle. It's not supposed to be in your face, but when you go in and you can imagine there being a character in here, it just feels like there's a little bit more. I guess you guess these are things you don't really even think about, even in the slightest, when you're watching a cartoon. But it's all there, believe me. Next time you're watching a cartoon, have a look, and you'll see all this tiny, minute detail in lots of areas. And it really does. Sometimes you add it and you're like, nah, it doesn't really fit. You kind of want it to mirror the shadows and where things may get quite dirty. I like doing them on the door frames, for example, if you can get away with doing it without it looking overdone. And then you can use your cutter just the same way you can use your cutter for anything else, and you can cut away the excess that you do. If you do come out of the lines a little bit or whatever, you can kind of just cut that off and ensure that you don't really, you know, you get the idea. So there we go. It's starting to look a little bit better. This hasn't really had that done to it yet, but if we look at this one, you can see it has. So these two are looking like a very similar room at this point. You know, there are differences, don't get me wrong, particularly with the wood colour choice. It looks a little bit lighter on this one than it does on this one. But either way, I'll be aligning them at the end anyway and just ensuring that I have used the exact same colours for everything, and, you know. So I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. And while I could sit here all night and go into, right, we're going to do this and we're going to do this now and we're going to do this, I think this video's gotten long enough just showing how to create a scene with single point perspective. There will be obviously props, and they're all built in the exact same way. You've got your vanishing point and everything reduces back to that vanishing point. But I feel like I covered most of the things that you will use, which are the grid. You'll use the pencil and the bucket tool, and you'll be using the brushes to sort of do the pointillism and the splashes to make the scene a little bit dirtier or a bit more realistic. Highlights and shadows. In obviously we only very briefly touched on it, and even looking at it now I can see a few rooms for improvement and a few inconsistencies rather than rooms for improvement that I would just tweak when I go back into this. But overall, I hope it's given you like a good idea of the time and effort that goes into painting a scene, and especially one where you've got where you want one or more angles of a particular room for any given reason. So I hope that if you're new to Toon Boom and you're sort of starting out on a journey and don't really know where to start, just get to grips with the drawing tools, get to grips with how to animate in not even to animate, sorry, how to use it as a program, as a vector program above animating, and really get to grips with the tools and how you can manipulate or draw, how you can draw in it, because you're going to be drawing a lot of stuff in there. And yeah, it's good fun. I'm really enjoying this side of it, the actual art direction of the scenes as opposed to the character rigging. Like I say, there's a lot more thought that goes into the character rigging. There's a lot more planning that has to go into it. With this, I just open it up and think, well, what do I want to draw today? And it's a different aspect of it, but it all comes together, even though it's quite scattered in terms of how I work. It all is, there's a overarching idea or goal, if you like, that I'm trying to work towards, which is create my own pilot 20-minute cartoon at some point, and all this will be used in it, I'm guessing, unless, like, you know, I've already got stuff that I'll throw away because my my eye's gotten better and my ability and my skill level has gotten better since I started. So some of the early stuff that I've done and just wouldn't think of using anymore, and that might continue for a while, but the idea is still there, and the long-term goal is to kind of build out a pilot at some point once I've got to grips with building scenes and building rigs. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I know this has been a lot longer than what I usually do, but I hope it has been useful and insightful into the journey that I'm on at the moment. And yeah, thanks. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe the video and share it if you get a chance, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you shortly. Bye.